Hello my dear viewers, this week I want to show you Governor's Island here in New York City. You can access the island by a ferry from Brooklyn or Manhattan. And so last Sunday at 7 o'clock in the morning, I went to Brooklyn, and when I got there I realized that the first ferry does not leave for Governor's Island until 10:15 in the morning. Now I should have remembered that, or at least look at the schedule before I left my home, but it was one of those mornings where my brain was completely turned off after an evening of crying silently when grading papers from my summer course and catching all the AI-generated responses. Yeah, that is a big issue now in education. And having almost 15 years of experience being a professor, I'm thinking that maybe at some point I will create a video on this channel about some of my thoughts in regards to this topic. But anyway, no harm done in traveling to Brooklyn. I got in my car, a quick drive through Brooklyn Bridge and into Lower Manhattan, where in less than 10 minutes I parked my car and I was already walking to the ferry, which leaves much earlier than the one in Brooklyn. You know what, that is why I love New York City on a Sunday morning, as many are still sleeping off those hangovers from drinking the night before. I use the city as my playground, and you can drive anywhere you want in minutes. During the regular week, the same route would probably have taken me at least 45 minutes if I was lucky, and I would not be able to find parking for the life of me. But here's a bit of the Freedom Tower and Lower Manhattan, so don't worry, we will visit these sites as well. However, this location I can really film at any point in the year, even in the winter, and really it's going to look mostly the same. Whereas in the warmer months, I want to focus on other places. So here we are, let's finally get to Governor's Island. That right there is the Staten Island Ferry, and a fantastic and a free way to see the Statue of Liberty from up close. But while everyone else is focused on the city, I focus on those apples right there. And I could already taste them. Small green apples which are not ripe yet. When you bite into them, you can break your teeth, and they are so sour, they make you close your eyes. Those are my favorite. Come fall, I will take you along on apple picking here in New York. But as all these thoughts are going through my mind, you know what else I thought about? Brooklyn is an island, because it's on Long Island. Then Manhattan is another island, and now Governor's Island. So I have been on 3 separate islands in less than an hour. Cool. So here we are. First up, Castle Williams. A fortification to prepare New York City for the upcoming war, which was the War of 1812 with the British. Although the fortification never actually saw any combat. The name Castle Williams comes from its designer, Colonel Jonathan Williams, who, by the way, also designed Castle Clinton, which is a fort across the water in Battery Park, Manhattan. However, when you really think about it, you realize how important New York City was in its history, even based on the various forts and fortifications guarding the city, like Fort Tilden, which I did a video on already, Fort Schuyler, Fort Wadsworth, Fort Hamilton, Fort Wood, which today is the base of the Statue of Liberty, Fort Gibson on Ellis Island, Governor's Island itself, which not only has Castle Williams, but also Fort J, which I will show you in a moment, and Castle Clinton in Manhattan. And these to name just some of the major fortifications around the city in the past. It was a new type of a fort which was circular. Here you see a view from above, while the previous forts were more angular. However, with this design, more area could have been covered by cannon fire, and the soldiers inside were less exposed to enemy fire. There are 78 openings for guns, and it is 3 stories high. So let's go inside. During the American Civil War, it served as a prison. So prisoners, enemy prisoners, and even deserters would stay here in these casemates, while new army recruits would stay on the upper levels. There are also some interesting things here, like these sandstones which you can touch, and they are what the structure was built out of. And in the courtyard, you can take a look at a pretty large model of the whole structure itself, which is kind of awesome. This served as a military prison all the way up to 1965. Not far away from Castle Williams is Fort Jay, named after John Jay, who was a very important figure in early American government, serving as Chief Justice and then as a governor of New York. The fort is star-shaped, just like Fort Wood, which again now serves as the base of the Statue of Liberty. And this fort was built in 1794 and then rebuilt in the early 1800s. In the main entry, you can still see a really interesting symbol, which unfortunately has some scaffolding around it, but still visible, not only having lots of American symbolism like the eagle, for example, but also a clear connection with even some symbolism from the Roman Empire, like, for example, the cap on top, which was worn by freed slaves in ancient Rome. Once the fort was no longer needed, it housed the families of those soldiers stationed on the island. Another interesting thing I want to show you is the gunpowder room, which was much deeper below the ground to protect from enemy fire and things like moisture. Although there is an art exhibit in the rooms, so I wanted to avoid recording anything that dealt with the art itself, because again, it's most likely copyrighted, so I would need permission. But I highly recommend to visit this place, as it is an amazing time, not just to spend your day and enjoy the views, but also visit some of these historical places. There is really something for everyone here. By the 20th century, Governor's Island became a pretty big military station, with over 3,000 active duty personnel and their families. When the Army left in 1966, it served as a base for the Coast Guard until completely closing in 1996. So walking through the island, you can see many of the former buildings which played a vital military role, today being completely abandoned, almost 30 years now. As you see here, a whole roof collapsed inside. Here's another example to show you that if something is off limits to the public, many times is due to the fact that the structure just might not be stable. Like you see here, the whole second balcony needs to be supported from possibly collapsing. Here was the theater building, which was built in 1939, playing various movies and having live theater, important not just as a form of entertainment for those who were stationed here, but like through World War II, for example, it was meant to raise morale of the troops through the various programs it provided. Here is Colonel's Row, so even if you are not interested in history, such a beautiful and peaceful place to walk through and enjoy the day. Not all homes are abandoned, as I see more and more of them being renovated and used for different purposes, like as opposed to, I believe, 2 years ago, since I was here last time. Various art exhibits are moving in, and sometimes even mixing things up a little bit, like you see here, with this 1942 Our Lady Star of the Sea Catholic Chapel being redone by Chantal Martin. There is another chapel on the island, St. Cornelius, which is part of Trinity Church Parish. And there is also a small Jewish synagogue, but again, all standing as empty buildings for now, only reminding people of the past. Next to the chapel, we have the South Battery, which was erected again for the War of 1812, along with Castle Williams, you saw earlier. And over the years, it served many purposes, eventually becoming Officers' Club during World War II. And Nolan Park. These homes date back to the 1800s, and many served as homes for officers and their families. But look at the difference between two homes, one of which is renovated and the other one is not. But it is in this vicinity that you find the commanding officer's quarters, which was built in 1843, home to the highest ranking officer and their family. And oh, is it fancy! I looked through the window and I saw a small chandelier next to a toilet. Now that is living in luxury. And the governor's house, one of the oldest buildings on the island, constructed in 1813. This is where colonial-era British governors lived, hence the name, Governor's Island. As you see, over the years it was redesigned by having a garage, for example, added in the back to accommodate the changing times. Hence, you can spend most of your day exploring all these military structures, or you can go and explore like the next half of the island. For instance, facing the side of the Statue of Liberty, you have collective retreats, which looks like a quarantine zone from a movie about a virus spreading or something like that. But in reality, these are tents and small homes that can be rented for the night, and you can stay on the island. That is, if you are willing to cough up some serious dollar bills. And as you pass the tents and homes, you can come across Outlook Hill, the highest point on the island. So you have a path going up, but if you are up for some climbing and adventure, take the rocks and steps like I did. Once on top, you get beautiful views of the whole island and Lower Manhattan as well. Tell me that is not awesome. Gorgeous views also of the Statue of Liberty. You can walk down like a normal human being using the path provided, or maybe you want to feel like you are alive again and young and go do some parkour down the stones, like I did. So at the bottom I broke my foot. Just kidding. Imagine. And here we come to the end of the island, where you have a picnic area, some chairs, benches, and of course those gorgeous views of the Statue of Liberty. On the other side of the island, as you head back, you can view Brooklyn, and I was lucky enough to catch a glimpse of this colossal vessel. One last thing you can take a look at before you leave the island is the vent building for the Hugh Carey Tunnel, what was known as the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which connects Brooklyn and Manhattan. Inside, there is a system of fans which brings clean air into the tunnel, while pulling out the fumes from the cars. I hope you all enjoyed this walk on Governor's Island with me, and now I will be heading back to Manhattan and then home to Queens. As for you, I hope you join me next Sunday in a new location. Take care everyone, bye bye.